Have you ever felt like you're always running? Running towards something you can't even see clearly. You wake up, check your phone, scroll, plan, dream, worry, and then run. You chase goals, success, better English, better life, and yet, sometimes, you still feel lost. I know that feeling. Because I was once like that too. Welcome, my friend, to Mr. English Lab, where we don't just learn English, we live it, we feel it, and we understand ourselves through it. Today, we'll take a deep, calm journey together, a journey called Stop Chasing, Start Realizing. This is not just an English lesson. It's a life story told in simple words, spoken slowly with care. It's a story about learning to stop, to listen, to breathe, and to speak with meaning. So, take a deep breath with me now. Inhale and exhale. Let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a young man, let's call him Alex. He was full of dreams. He wanted to speak perfect English, get a great job, travel the world, and finally feel proud of himself. Every morning, he opened his English notebook, wrote new words, and said, "Today, I'll finally sound like a native speaker." But every evening, when he spoke with others, he felt nervous again. He forgot words. He worried about mistakes. And every time someone corrected him, it hurt. He thought, maybe I'm just not good enough. So he studied harder. He watched more videos. He repeated more sentences. He filled his phone with grammar apps. He was chasing something perfection. But he didn't realize something very important. He wasn't just learning English. He was trying to prove his worth. And one day, he felt it, that quiet sadness that comes when you keep running and running, but you don't know where the road leads. It was raining that day. He sat by the window, watching the drops hit the glass, and he said softly to himself, "I'm tired, but I can't stop." Maybe you felt that too. That feeling of being stuck between I must keep going and I just want to rest. That day was the first time Alex realized something was wrong. He wasn't chasing English anymore. He was chasing enoughness. He wanted to feel that he was enough. And that's where our story really begins. I want you to imagine Alex walking through the city after that day. The streets are busy, full of people, everyone looking down at their phones, walking fast, thinking about their next goal. He looks around and wonders, why are we all rushing? Why do we all look tired? And then he laughs quietly. Because he realizes he's one of them. He's chasing something invisible. Like chasing the wind. Like running after a shadow. And in that moment, he whispers to himself, maybe I don't need to run anymore. Maybe I just need to see. Now, let's pause here for a moment. If you're listening to me right now, maybe you're also chasing something, better English, a better job, a dream that feels far away. You might be thinking, if I could just speak fluently, then my life would be perfect. But here's the truth, fluency is not something you chase. It's something you grow into slowly, naturally, by realizing the beauty of the process. So, as we go through this story, I want you to listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. Every sentence, every pause, every word is a piece of meaning. Because the more you feel the language, the more it becomes yours. That night, Alex couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his life, his goals, his fear of being not enough. And suddenly, a strange question came to his mind. What if I stop chasing? What will happen then? He imagined a day where he didn't try to be perfect, just present. Where he spoke English not to impress others, but to connect. Where he studied not to prove his worth, but because he enjoyed it. The thought scared him at first. Because chasing was all he knew. It gave him purpose, even if it made him tired. Stopping felt like failure. But that night, under the soft light of the small lamp, he wrote something in his notebook. I will stop chasing. I will start realizing. He didn't know what it meant fully, but he knew it was true. He needed to find a new way, a calmer, deeper way of living and learning. And that's where his real English journey and his real life began. Let's take this moment and think together. When we learn English, what are we truly chasing? Are we chasing the sound of a native accent? Or are we chasing the feeling of being understood? Are we trying to speak perfectly? Or are we trying to express our truth? Maybe the problem isn't our grammar or our accent. Maybe the problem is the way we measure ourselves. You see, many learners think, I'll be confident when I speak like a native. But confidence doesn't come after fluency. It comes before. Confidence is not the result of fluency, it's the foundation. And Alex was about to learn that. One morning, he walked into his favorite cafe, the same place he always studied. The barista smiled and said, "Good morning, Alex." The usual. And for the first time, Alex didn't answer with his usual nervousness. He smiled and said, "Yes, please." And, "How are you today?" It was a small sentence. Simple words. But it changed something inside him. Because this time, he wasn't thinking about grammar or vocabulary. He was thinking about connection. That's when it clicked. He didn't need to chase big, fancy words. He needed to connect. To be real. And when you focus on connection, fluency follows naturally. That day, Alex wrote 3 words in his notebook again. Stop. Realize. Grow. He decided that from now on, he would not chase English. He would live it. He would stop worrying about how perfect he sounded and start paying attention to how alive he felt when speaking. He would speak slowly, clearly, with emotion. He would listen deeply, not just for words, but for meaning. And slowly, everything began to change. My friend, maybe this is the moment for you too. To stop chasing. To start realizing. To start seeing how amazing you already are right now, right here, listening to this story in English. Because you're not just learning English. You're learning to understand yourself. And that's the real journey. So, the chase begins. But this time, not to run faster, but to understand slower. Because when you slow down, you begin to see clearly. And when you see clearly, you start to grow. And as we move forward in this story, you'll discover what Alex found next, how to turn realization into transformation. Let's walk together. Don't rush. Don't chase. Just listen and realize. The morning was quiet. Sunlight seeped through the curtains, painting soft patterns on the wooden floor. Alex woke up, not with excitement, but with a strange calm. It was the calm after a storm, when everything feels still and you finally notice what the storm was hiding. He sat on the edge of his bed and looked around his small room. Books stacked neatly. A notebook filled with English words and phrases. A pen lying next to it. And suddenly, Alex realized something he had never realized before. He had been chasing English as if it were a goal outside of himself. But the truth was, the real challenge was inside. He walked to the mirror and stared at his own reflection. The face looking back seemed familiar, but strange. It was the same face he had always known. Yet it was tired, worried, and searching. He whispered to himself, softly, almost like a secret, "Who am I, really, behind all this chasing?" Have you ever looked in a mirror and asked yourself that question? Not about your appearance. Not about your accent or your English level. But about yourself. Alex thought about all the mornings he woke up thinking, if I speak better English, people will respect me. If I speak faster, people will like me more. If I know more words, I will finally feel proud. And then he stopped. Wait, he said aloud. What if none of that is true? The words felt strange, almost frightening. Because his whole life had been built on chasing approval, chasing perfection. Chasing a future version of himself that he had imagined. And now he had to face the present. Alex took a deep breath and looked closer. He noticed small details. The slight tension in his jaw. The tightness in his shoulders. the nervous twitch when he smiled. All of these were signs. Signs that he had been living in the future, not the present. And then he asked himself another question. What if I just start from here? Start from now. Start from the person in the mirror. Start from my real English, not the perfect English I am chasing. It was a simple thought, but it felt like a revelation. You see, learning English is not just about words. It is about feeling safe to speak. It is about accepting your mistakes. It is about being real. Alex remembered all the times he had been embarrassed when speaking. All the times he had repeated sentences in his head, worrying if he would sound silly. All the moments he had paused, frozen, afraid of judgment. And he realized something very important. Mistakes are not failures. Mistakes are mirrors. They show us what we need to see. He picked up his notebook and wrote a new sentence. I will speak, even if I make mistakes. He wrote it slowly, carefully. Not just to practice writing, but to remind himself deeply that mistakes were okay. Then he closed the notebook. And he looked in the mirror again. This time, he didn't see the tired, worried face. He saw curiosity. He saw courage. He saw a learner, not a perfectionist, not a chaser, but a learner. And that was beautiful. Let's pause here. Think about the last time you spoke English. Did you pause because you were afraid of a mistake? Did you repeat words in your head, trying to be perfect? Did you avoid speaking because the fear of being wrong felt too strong? Alex had done all of this. But today, in front of the mirror, he realized the only real obstacle is fear. Not grammar. Not vocabulary. Not accent. Fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of being judged. Fear of not being good enough. And once fear is understood, once it is seen clearly, it begins to fade. Alex decided to take a walk. He needed fresh air. He needed to see the world outside of his small room. And maybe, he thought, the world would teach him something about himself. The streets were lively. People were talking, laughing, living. Some spoke English. Some spoke other languages. Some were quiet. Some were moving fast. And Alex noticed something. Everyone was imperfect. Everyone made mistakes. Everyone was learning something, even if it was not English. He smiled, because he realized he was not alone. On a small bench near the park, he sat and observed the people passing by. A child dropped his ice cream and started to cry. A woman smiled at a stranger. An old man fed the pigeons carefully, as if each one mattered. And he thought, life is not perfect. English is not perfect. But every moment is real. Every word is real. Every connection is real. He took out his notebook again and wrote, Speak from your heart. Listen with your heart. This was different from the old sentences he wrote to memorize words. This was about living English. About using English as a bridge, not a trophy. Then he noticed his own reflection in a puddle on the ground. The water trembled as someone walked by. And suddenly, Alex saw himself differently. Not just a learner chasing fluency. Not just a man chasing approval. But a human being. A human being learning, failing, noticing, and growing. And he whispered softly, I am enough right now. I don't need to chase. I just need to realize. This moment, this mirror moment, changed everything. Because from now on, Alex's English journey would not be about running. It would be about noticing, feeling, connecting. He realized that speaking English well was not about memorizing rules. It was about expressing himself. It was about being brave enough to say what he felt. It was about listening, understanding, and caring. And this lesson, my friend, is for you too. Stop thinking English is just a tool. Stop chasing perfect sentences. Stop measuring yourself by someone else's standard. Instead, look in the mirror. See yourself clearly. Accept who you are right now. And realize mistakes are not the enemy. They're teachers. From this moment, Alex started to practice English differently. He spoke slowly, clearly. He made mistakes and smiled at them. He listened carefully to others. And he noticed how much he learned just by paying attention. He realized something simple but powerful. Growth happens when you stop chasing and start realizing. And this realization is more important than any textbook, app, or course. Because it changes the way you live, not just the way you speak. And so, Alex's journey continued. Not as a chaser of perfection, but as a seeker of truth. Not as a student of English, but as a student of life. And as we follow him, you will learn something very special: how to turn English learning into a story you live every day. Because the mirror shows the truth, and truth brings freedom. The next morning, Alex woke up with a quiet excitement. It wasn't the excitement of chasing or rushing, but the excitement of possibility. He had stopped running. He had looked in the mirror. And now he wanted to take one small step forward. He poured a cup of tea and sat by the window. The sun was soft, golden, warm. He opened his notebook and wrote a sentence. Today, I will speak without fear. Simple words. Nothing fancy. Nothing perfect. But these words carried power. Alex decided to visit a small cafe near his apartment. He had been there many times before, but today he had a new intention. He would speak English with someone, not to impress them, not to prove himself, but just to connect. When he entered the cafe, he saw the barista smiling as always. "Good morning, Alex," she said warmly. And this time, Alex didn't hesitate. He smiled back. "Good morning. How are you today?" It was a small sentence, very simple. But something had changed. The words felt alive. The connection felt real. The barista smiled wider, and they talked for a few minutes. Alex listened carefully, really listened. He didn't worry about mistakes. He didn't pause to think of the perfect response. He just responded naturally. And in that moment, he realized something powerful. When you focus on connection, fear fades. After leaving the cafe, Alex walked through the streets with a new awareness. He noticed the sounds of the city, the hum of cars, the laughter of children, the soft chatter of strangers. Each sound was a word, a story, a moment of life. He thought about English in a new way. It was not just grammar or vocabulary. It was a bridge to people, to experiences, to feelings. And suddenly, learning English didn't feel like a race anymore. It felt like life itself. Later that day, Alex joined an online English conversation group. Before, he would have felt nervous, hesitated, and worried about mistakes. But today, he remembered the mirror moment. He remembered the simple sentence, "I will speak, even if I make mistakes." He took a deep breath and said hello. Simple, clear, warm. The group welcomed him. And for the first time, he noticed something subtle but important. People were not judging him. They were listening. They were responding. They were connecting. And Alex felt something he hadn't felt before: joy. Pure, simple joy of speaking, being understood, and understanding others. That evening, Alex sat down with his notebook again. He wrote a reflection. "I spoke today. I made mistakes. I laughed. I connected. This is learning." He smiled. Because he realized something crucial: learning English is not about perfection. It is about experience. It is about living the language, step by step, moment by moment. The first breakthrough did not come from hours of study. It did not come from memorizing lists of words. It came from one small shift in mindset. Stop chasing perfection. Start realizing connection. This shift, small as it may seem, changed everything. Alex remembered all the times he had studied endlessly, feeling frustrated when he didn't improve fast enough. And now he realized the real growth was in practice, not in chasing. The real growth was in courage, not in speed. The real growth was in noticing, not in rushing. Let's pause here for a moment. Think about your own English learning journey. Have you ever focused so much on getting it right that you forgot to use it, feel it, experience it? Alex teaches us an important lesson. Mistakes are not failures. Words are not weapons. Conversation is not a test. It is life. And when you embrace this truth, something magical happens. Confidence begins to grow. Fluency begins to flow. Joy begins to appear. Alex decided to try something new the next day. He walked into a bookstore and started talking to the shop owner, a kind woman who loved English books. Instead of rehearsing sentences in his head, he simply asked questions. What books do you recommend for learning English? Which stories are easy to read but fun? The shop owner smiled and started sharing stories. Alex listened carefully. He laughed when the stories were funny. He asked questions when he was curious. And in those moments, he noticed something remarkable. He was not thinking about mistakes. He was not thinking about vocabulary. He was thinking about the story. And when you focus on stories, connection, and curiosity, English stops being a challenge and starts being a tool for living fully. By the end of the week, Alex felt lighter. He spoke more confidently in conversations. He made fewer pauses. He noticed patterns in words, phrases, and pronunciation naturally. Not because he chased them, but because he used them. And he felt proud. Not proud because he was perfect, but proud because he was learning, growing, and connecting. Here's the truth, my friend. The first breakthrough is always small. It might feel tiny, invisible even. But it is the seed of transformation. A seed that grows when you speak, listen, and feel. Alex realized that learning English is much like life. Small, simple steps, taken with courage, create change. Not giant leaps. Not endless chasing. But real, conscious action. That night, Alex wrote another sentence in his notebook. Today I spoke. Today I lived. Today I learned. And he smiled. Because he knew this was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where English became more than words. Where mistakes became teachers. Where fear became courage. And where learning became joy. So, the first breakthrough is never about being perfect. It is about showing up. It is about being brave enough to speak. It is about realizing the power of small, meaningful actions. And for Alex and for you listening today, this is the moment where everything starts to change. A few weeks had passed since Alex's first breakthrough. He felt lighter, more confident, and connected to English in a way he never had before. Each day, he spoke more. Each day, he listened more. Each day, he felt a little braver. But life has a way of testing us just when we feel safe. One morning, Alex received an email. It was from a company he had applied to months ago, a chance for a position he had dreamed of for years. He felt excitement rush through him. This is it, he thought. My chance to prove myself. My English will finally matter. He read the email carefully. The company wanted him to join a video interview live, unscripted, with senior managers. And it would be conducted entirely in English. Alex smiled at first. This is my moment, he said aloud. But then a wave of doubt came crashing in. What if I make mistakes? What if I forget words? What if I sound foolish? Suddenly, all the confidence he had built seemed fragile. His heart raced. His hands felt sweaty. His mind whispered, maybe you're not ready. Maybe you should wait. And he realized something important. Growth always meets a challenge. The deeper the growth, the bigger the test. The day of the interview arrived. Alex dressed carefully. He practiced breathing slowly. He reminded himself of the mirror moment, the first breakthrough, and the lessons he had learned. But as soon as the video call started, nerves took over. The managers asked questions quickly. Complex questions. Questions about strategy, teamwork, and problem-solving. Alex's heart pounded. He stumbled over words. He paused. He forgot simple phrases he normally knew. And then he felt it, the familiar fear of failure, the fear of judgment. His mind screamed, "I am not enough. I am not ready." For a moment, he froze. The old Alex, the one who chased perfection, would have panicked completely. He might have closed the laptop and given up. But not this Alex. Alex took a deep breath. He remembered a simple sentence he had written in his notebook. Speak from your heart. Listen with your heart. He closed his eyes for a moment, grounding himself. Then he opened his eyes, looked at the camera, and spoke again. Slowly, clearly, honestly. He admitted when he didn't know an answer. He asked for clarification when a question confused him. And he spoke about what he did know, his experiences, his learning journey, and his passion. Something unexpected happened. The managers smiled. They listened. They nodded. And most importantly, they responded. Alex realized in that moment, mistakes are not the end of the world. Being honest, curious, and real is more important than sounding perfect. After the interview, Alex felt a strange mix of relief and pride. He had stumbled. He had paused. He had forgotten words. But he had survived. And in surviving, he had learned something even more important than vocabulary or grammar. He had learned resilience. Resilience is not about never failing. It is about speaking, acting, and living even when you are afraid. It is about standing up after stumbling. It is about keeping your heart and mind open, no matter what happens. That evening, Alex walked in the quiet streets, reflecting. He thought about all the times he had felt fear in his English learning, all the times he had avoided speaking, all the times he had doubted himself. And he realized, fear is not a sign that you are weak. Fear is a sign that you are growing. Every challenge, every stumble, every mistake is a mirror showing what you need to learn next. Alex smiled softly. He thought about the first breakthrough and the mirror moment. And he understood something profound. English is not just about speaking. It is about courage. It is about connection. It is about realizing that mistakes are steps, not walls. The next morning, Alex opened his notebook and wrote a new sentence. Challenges are my teachers. Fear is my guide. Simple words. But they held immense meaning. Because he now understood something vital. You cannot control every word you say. You cannot predict every question. You cannot eliminate fear. But you can choose how you respond. You can choose to speak, to act, to connect. You can choose to grow. Alex's confidence didn't return instantly. It grew slowly, day by day. He spoke more in meetings. He joined more conversation groups. He asked questions in class. He laughed at his own mistakes. And each small victory built on the last. That is how real growth happens, through small, meaningful steps, through facing challenges, through realizing that fear is part of the journey. Let's take a moment to reflect together. Have you ever faced an unexpected challenge in English learning? Perhaps a conversation, a presentation, or even a simple question. Did fear stop you? Or did you find a way to keep going? Alex shows us that challenges are not walls to stop us. They are doors to open. They are opportunities to see what we are made of. And when we face them with courage, we begin to realize our true potential. That week, Alex felt a quiet joy in his English practice. Because now he knew something he hadn't known before. It is okay to stumble. It is okay to pause. It is okay to not know. The important thing is to keep speaking. The important thing is to keep learning. The important thing is to keep connecting. And so, Alex's journey continued. Not as a perfect learner, not as someone chasing approval, but as a brave, curious, resilient human being. And this, my friend, is the lesson for you too. The days after the unexpected challenge felt different for Alex. He walked with a lighter step. He spoke with a calmer voice. He smiled more often, even at small things that he had ignored before. Something had changed inside him. Not because he suddenly became perfect at English. Not because he had all the answers. But because he had discovered the joy of small wins. It started with tiny moments. One morning, Alex walked into a bakery near his apartment. He had ordered bread there many times, but today he decided to try something new. Instead of pointing at the menu, he said clearly to the baker, "I would like a croissant, please." The baker smiled warmly. "Of course. Anything else?" Alex paused, but then he said, "Yes, a small coffee, please." "Thank you." He realized something surprising. His heart was calm, and he felt a quiet happiness. He had spoken clearly. He had been understood. He had connected. And this small moment felt bigger than any exam, any test, any achievement he had chased before. Later that day, Alex decided to write in his notebook again. But this time, it wasn't about grammar or vocabulary. It was about feelings. He wrote, "I spoke today. I was understood. I am learning. I am growing." Simple words, but powerful. Because he was beginning to notice progress in tiny, real moments. And that is what small wins are, moments you see, feel, and celebrate. They are the quiet victories that build confidence, step by step. Alex started paying attention to these small wins throughout the day. He noticed when he used a new word correctly in a conversation. He noticed when he remembered a phrase he had been practicing. He noticed when someone smiled at him and seemed to understand him fully. Each of these moments gave him energy. Each of these moments reminded him that learning English was not about rushing or chasing perfection. It was about living the language, experiencing it, and celebrating it. One afternoon, Alex joined a group discussion online. He was nervous at first, but then he remembered the small wins he had already achieved. He shared his thoughts on a topic. At first, he paused. He stumbled over a word, but then he laughed quietly and tried again. The other members nodded. They asked questions. They responded. And Alex noticed a feeling he had never felt before in English practice: joy in speaking, joy in being understood, joy in participating. He realized that the joy of small wins comes from action, not perfection. It comes from trying, from showing up, and from noticing progress. That evening, Alex reflected on the week. He realized that English learning is much like life. Life is not about giant leaps. Life is about small, meaningful steps. He wrote in his notebook, step by step, word by word, connection by connection. This is learning. He smiled at the simplicity of it. Because in that simplicity, he had discovered freedom. Alex began applying this mindset to everything. When he spoke with friends, he focused on expressing ideas clearly, not perfectly. When he listened, he focused on understanding meaning, not catching every word. When he read, he focused on stories and emotions, not on every grammar point. And with each small action, he noticed something magical. Confidence began to grow naturally. Fluency began to appear naturally. Joy began to bloom naturally. One evening, while practicing English at home, Alex noticed something else. He had been afraid of speaking alone before, thinking it would be silly or awkward. But now, speaking alone felt fun, creative, and freeing. He read a short story aloud. He repeated dialogues in different voices. He experimented with intonation, rhythm, and pauses. And he laughed at himself. He wrote again in his notebook. Practice is not work. It is play. It is joy. It is discovery. And for the first time, Alex truly believed it. Let's pause here. Think about your English learning journey. Have you noticed the small wins? Maybe it was using a new word correctly. Maybe it was understanding a sentence in a movie without subtitles. Maybe it was finally saying a sentence without stopping. Each of these is a victory. And if you celebrate them, you will feel growth in a real, lasting way. Because learning English, like life, is a journey of noticing, appreciating, and taking joy in the little things. Alex's new approach also changed how he looked at mistakes. Before, a mistake felt like failure. Now, mistakes felt like guides, little markers showing him where he could improve. He wrote in his notebook, "Mistakes are my teachers. Wins are my fuel." And he realized something even more powerful. The combination of mistakes and small wins builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds joy. And joy makes learning unstoppable. By the end of the month, Alex noticed something incredible. He could speak for longer periods without pausing. He could understand conversations more easily. He could read aloud with feeling, not just words. And more importantly, he felt proud, not proud because he was perfect, but proud because he showed up, faced challenges, and celebrated progress. This was the real breakthrough. So here is the lesson, my friend. Stop waiting for big success. Stop chasing perfection. Start noticing every small win. Every time you speak, every time you understand, every time you connect, that is progress. That is growth. That is joy. And just like Alex, you will begin to feel the magic of small wins, a magic that transforms your learning, your confidence, and your life. Alex had learned the joy of small wins. He had faced challenges and discovered courage. He had stopped chasing perfection and started realizing the beauty of progress. But now he faced a new lesson, the lesson of persistence and patience. One morning, Alex opened his notebook as usual. He wrote a sentence that had been echoing in his mind. Growth takes time. Patience is strength. He stared at it for a moment. The words felt simple, yet heavy with meaning. Because Alex knew something important, he could not expect instant fluency. He could not expect every conversation to be perfect. He could not expect every day to feel productive. Real learning was like planting a tree. You water it every day. You give it sunlight. You remove the weeds. And you wait. The growth is slow, almost invisible at first. But over time, the tree grows strong, tall, and beautiful. Alex decided to apply this mindset to his English practice. He created small daily habits. Every morning, he read a short story aloud for 10 minutes. Every afternoon, he wrote 5 sentences in his notebook. Every evening, he spoke with someone, even if just for a few minutes. At first, it felt repetitive. Some days, he felt tired. Some days, he struggled to find words. Some days, he wondered if it was even working. But he remembered the mirror moment. He remembered the first breakthrough. He remembered the small wins. And slowly, he began to notice changes. His pronunciation improved. Not because he tried to perfect every word, but because he practiced consistently, listened carefully, and corrected gently. His listening improved. Not because he forced himself to understand everything, but because he paid attention, asked questions, and stayed patient with himself. And most importantly, his confidence grew. Not because he suddenly spoke like a native, but because he knew he could speak, even if imperfectly. Alex also realized the importance of patience with others. He had once been frustrated when someone didn't understand him. Now he smiled and repeated calmly, "Let me say it differently," or "Could you explain that again?" Patience created understanding. Patience built connections. Patience made learning enjoyable. And patience, he realized, is not passive. It is active. It is a choice to continue, even when progress seemed slow. One day, Alex joined a conversation group online. He noticed a new member, a young woman struggling to speak. She hesitated. She paused. She stumbled over words. Before, Alex might have ignored it or felt impatient. But now he remembered his own journey. He smiled at her. He listened carefully. He encouraged her gently. And something remarkable happened. She relaxed. She smiled. She spoke more confidently. Alex felt a quiet joy. Because persistence and patience are not just about your own learning. They're about helping others grow too. Over the next few weeks, Alex's habits began to feel natural. Speaking English, listening, writing, and reading became part of his daily rhythm. Not as a task, not as a burden, but as a practice, a ritual, a small act of growth every day. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began to notice his English changing. His sentences flowed more smoothly. He could express thoughts more clearly. He could understand longer conversations without getting lost. But more importantly, he noticed something deeper. His mindset had changed. He no longer measured success by the absence of mistakes. He measured it by persistence, by showing up consistently, by staying patient with himself, by celebrating small progress. He wrote in his notebook, "Patience is my teacher. Persistence is my path. Growth is the reward." And he truly felt it. Alex also discovered another important truth. Consistency does not mean rigidity. Sometimes life interrupts practice. Sometimes he missed a day. Sometimes he felt tired, distracted, or unmotivated. And that was okay. Because persistence is not about being perfect. Persistence is about returning after every pause. Persistence is about keeping the habit alive, even when life gets messy. He compared it to a river flowing. Sometimes it slows down. Sometimes it curves. Sometimes it meets obstacles. But the river keeps moving. And over time, it reaches the ocean. Alex started thinking about his English learning in the same way. Each day, each small practice, each conversation, they were like drops of water. Alone, small and gentle. But together, over time, they built fluency, confidence, and understanding. He wrote again in his notebook, "Fluency is a river. Every word, every sentence, every moment flows toward it." And he smiled. Alex also noticed a change in his attitude toward mistakes. Before, a mistake felt like a disaster. Now, mistakes were opportunities to learn. Each mistake told him, "Here is something to notice. Here is something to improve. Here is a step forward." And he began to laugh at mistakes. He began to enjoy the learning process. He began to feel empowered, not afraid. One afternoon, Alex reflected on all he had learned. He remembered the chase, the mirror moment, the first breakthrough, the unexpected challenge, and the small wins. He realized that persistence and patience were the thread connecting all of them. Without persistence, the first breakthrough might have been lost. Without patience, the small wins might have gone unnoticed. Without both, fear and doubt would have returned. But together, persistence and patience created momentum. Momentum created confidence. Confidence created joy. And joy made learning English a true, living experience. So here is the lesson from Alex's journey. You do not need to speak perfectly today. You do not need to know every word. You do not need to rush. What you need is persistence, to keep showing up. What you need is patience, to allow growth to unfold. And if you practice consistently, small wins will appear, confidence will grow, and fluency will slowly but surely follow. Alex had come a long way. He had stopped chasing perfection. He had faced challenges bravely. He had celebrated small wins. He had practiced persistence and patience. But now he realized something deeper. Transformation was not just about speaking English better. It was not just about memorizing words or mastering grammar. Transformation was about becoming someone who could speak, connect, and live fully without fear. One morning, Alex sat by his favorite cafe. The sun was warm. A gentle breeze moved the leaves. He opened his notebook and reflected. I have learned to speak, even when afraid. I have learned to listen, even when distracted. I have learned to grow, even when slow. And now I feel different. I feel free. Freedom. That word resonated deeply in his chest. Because all his life, he had felt imprisoned by fear, judgment, and the chase for perfection. Now he felt light. He felt capable. He felt alive. Transformation often comes quietly, without fireworks. It does not announce itself loudly. It appears in small moments, in subtle ways, in the calm confidence you feel in your body, your voice, your mind. Alex noticed it in simple ways. When he spoke English now, he did not pause to check every word. When he listened, he heard meaning, emotion, and connection, not just words. When he read, he felt stories, not grammar points. When he wrote, he expressed himself honestly, not mechanically. And all these small changes added up. They created a new way of being. One afternoon, Alex walked in the park and saw a young boy struggling to speak English with a tourist. The boy looked nervous. He stumbled. He hesitated. Alex approached and smiled. He said softly, "Hello. Don't worry. You can do it. Just try." The boy looked at him, hesitant at first. But then he tried. And Alex noticed the joy in the boy's face when he spoke even a few words correctly. Alex realized something profound. Transformation is not only personal. It spreads. When you grow, others around you grow too. Your courage inspires. Your patience teaches. Your joy connects. That evening, Alex reflected deeply. He wrote in his notebook, I am not perfect. I will make mistakes. But I can speak. I can listen. I can connect. And that is enough. He closed the notebook and smiled. Because he realized that English fluency was no longer a distant goal. It was happening as he lived it. Every conversation, every sentence, every interaction was part of his transformation. He was no longer chasing fluency. He was becoming fluent through living. Alex also noticed another powerful change. He no longer feared making mistakes. Mistakes had become teachers, not enemies. They guided him to notice, reflect, and adjust. And through this, he felt confident, capable, and free. He thought about the people he had spoken to, the barista, the conversation group, the boy in the park. He realized that language is not just words. Language is connection. Language is life. Language is transformation. Alex began to see patterns in his learning that he had never noticed before. He saw that small, consistent actions created change. He saw that facing fear created courage. He saw that celebrating wins created confidence. And he saw that patience created freedom. These were not English lessons. These were life lessons. And the beauty of it was that they applied to every part of life: work, relationships, dreams, and personal growth. One night, Alex reflected on the journey so far. He remembered the chase, the sleepless nights, the fear, the mistakes, the small wins, the persistence, the patience. And he understood something crucial. Transformation does not come from chasing. Transformation comes from realizing. Realizing your potential. Realizing your courage. Realizing your connection to others and to life itself. Alex smiled as he wrote the final sentence in his notebook for the day. I am learning. I am growing. I am becoming. This is my transformation. It was simple. It was clear. It was full of meaning. And in that simplicity, He felt complete. Alex also discovered a new joy in helping others. He began mentoring beginners in English, sharing not only words and grammar, but the mindset he had learned. He reminded them, don't chase perfection. Celebrate small wins. Be patient. Keep going. Speak from your heart. And he noticed that as he helped others, he also reinforced his own growth. Transformation, he realized, is not only personal. It spreads, creating a ripple effect. So here is the lesson for you, my friend. Your English journey is more than words. It is more than grammar or vocabulary. It is more than tests or exams. It is a journey of transformation, a journey of realizing your courage, a journey of connecting with others, a journey of growing through small wins, persistence, and patience. And the amazing thing is, transformation is happening right now as you listen, as you practice, as you live. Alex's story is not over. But in this moment, he feels empowered, confident, and free. He knows that challenges will come. Mistakes will happen. Doubt will appear. But he also knows the truth. When you stop chasing and start realizing, you transform. When you speak from your heart, mistakes become teachers. When you persist patiently, progress becomes joy. And that, my friend, is the secret to learning English and to learning life itself. Alex sat by the window, notebook open, pen in hand. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. He took a deep breath and reflected on everything he had experienced. He thought about the first day when he was constantly chasing perfection. He remembered the fear, the doubt, the sleepless nights, and the endless worry. He remembered the mirror moment when he finally faced himself and asked, "Who am I really?" He remembered the first breakthrough, the small moment in the cafe when he spoke English with connection and felt joy. He remembered the unexpected challenge, the interview that tested his courage and patience. He remembered celebrating small wins, learning persistence and patience, and slowly, step by step, transforming his mindset. And now he realized something very important. Learning English is not about being perfect. It is about showing up, speaking from your heart, listening deeply, and growing every day. Alex smiled as he wrote in his notebook one final sentence for the day. I am not chasing fluency. I am living it. I am not seeking approval. I am connecting. I am not fearing mistakes. I am learning. He closed the notebook and leaned back. For the first time in a long time, he felt calm, confident, and free. Now, let's reflect together, my friend. If you have been learning English for a long time, maybe you feel frustrated. Maybe you feel like progress is too slow. Maybe you feel like mistakes are holding you back. Alex teaches us that all of these feelings are normal. They are part of the journey. The key is to stop chasing perfection and start realizing. Realization of your courage. Realization of your connection with others. Realization of your growth, even in small steps. When you realize these things, English learning becomes not just a skill. It becomes a part of your life. It becomes meaningful. It becomes joyful. Here are the key takeaways from Alex's journey. Stop chasing perfection. Focus on connection, understanding, and expression. Celebrate small wins. Every word spoken, every sentence understood, every conversation is a step forward. Face challenges with courage. Mistakes and fear are teachers, not obstacles. Practice persistence and patience. Small, consistent actions over time create lasting transformation. Transformation is living the language. Fluency grows naturally when you use English to connect, express, and experience life. Alex also realized another truth. Learning English is not just about language. It is about personal growth. It is about confidence. It is about joy. It is about freedom. And this is why his journey matters. He is not perfect. He is still learning. He still makes mistakes. But he is living the journey fully. So, my friend, as you listen to this story, remember, you are not just learning English. You are learning yourself. You are learning courage, patience, joy, and connection. Every time you speak, every time you listen, every time you read or write, you are taking steps toward your own transformation. You do not need to rush. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to show up, notice your progress, and keep moving forward. Alex stood up, closed his notebook, and looked out the window. The sky was dark now, stars beginning to appear. He felt grateful for the journey, for the lessons, for the small victories. He knew that tomorrow, he would continue learning, growing, and connecting. And so can you. Remember, stop chasing, start realizing. Celebrate small wins. Face challenges bravely. Practice persistence and patience. Live the language. This is your path to English fluency, confidence, and transformation. And just like Alex, if you follow this path, you will discover the joy of speaking, connecting, and truly living, not just learning.